Welcome to YSM Conversations, a gathering place for women who sense something deeper is calling. Together, we believe that the most profound adventures begin within, and that when women gather in deep conversation, something ancient and necessary awakens.
Open the door to a new conversation through generative listening, weaving together generations of wisdom and listening beyond the ears to restore the intelligence your body has always carried and integrate soulfulness into the adventure of your life. This is restoring and connecting to the deeper current running beneath it all.
We are YSM Conversations. Welcome home.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Victoria McMahon with Danielle Young-Smith. We're entering the second story of our Consciously Completing series. The second conversation is all about story, and story can come about in a lot of different ways. One way I was thinking of it was through the metaphor of the tree and how the tree is deeply grounded through its roots into the earth. Just as we talked last session about how, as we're shifting in this timeline into the new energies of communication and fast pace and AI and staying in our true node place versus getting caught up in various truths, facts, and opinions. Because we've just passed the threshold of Mother's Day, we wanted to bring in that story of trees as rooting and creating a lineage of what comes up deeply rooted and branches out into the various generations of the feminine lineage and how the stories have changed over generations through the wisdom of women being shared, cared for, being gestated, and how it comes out into the leaves of the tree, the diversity and distinction of the various women that birthed us, have included us in their lives as sisters or deep friends from childhood, and how we carry ourselves forward in this expression. It comes from the deep messages in the roots. To talk about how this origin sources up, Danielle, how communication happens in the trees themselves, because I have a definite relationship to communicating with trees. And I want to know some of the science, that communication system, if you will.
We're talking about mycelium here. One of the aspects of communication through the earth and through the roots of many plants is mycelium, which is just fungus. It's a network of fungus that lives within our earth and the ground and around the roots of our plants, and it transmits energy across itself to communicate. It's energy, it's chemicals that are communicating through miles and miles of ground. It enables it to be one collective organism effectively because it's all connected within itself and within the system. So it's this really cool effect of things that seem separate from each other from our point of view above ground, like one tree over here and one tree over there, or even a stand of trees, is actually connected, where we see them as separate, but underneath the ground, within the body, within the roots, they're fully connected with each other. And it makes them stronger, and it makes them able to share information with each other in their own really beautiful, unique way. I think that's one of the pieces that we want to pull in to our conversation and to this mini series of the information that we've received from within, from our roots, from our ancestors, from our bodies, that we can now bring forth into the separate beings that we are in our next chapter of humanity, of this planet, of technology, of all the different pieces that we are experiencing in this world right now.
I so love how you brought the unity of the messages. And it's that way with women, how we know each other. in family, beyond family, we share this mycelium like structure in how we are with one another, so often more than we realize. And definitely within our lineage, our ancestors as women, it does come up into the trunk and then the branches. I know for me, some of the branches are big fat branches that are strong, supportive, and necessary, and other branches that were more challenging branches. One of the questions we are proposing here today is, from all of those messages and deep roots, how do we listen to what all of those messages were? And then how do we feel it grow us into who we are as trees? And ultimately, the leaves that express those feminine messages, qualities, natures, they do fall off during the season and then regrow new. So I want to take that full life force energy that is what connects us together, that empathy, that glue that we talked about in the previous series. How do we take that and use the energy of now, the time that we're stepping into, to fully increase our capacity to discern what to grow forward, what branches really hold us, how the trunk really holds us, how the roots really define us, and what do we release?
And I love it within this tree metaphor too, because pruning is part of having a healthy tree. It's part of the life cycle. Yes, leaves and branches fall off naturally, and also pruning is part of the process when we are stewarding a tree. Now, when we first learned about this, there can be a tendency to just cut off all the branches. I know I did that when I was caring for my first lemon tree because I was like, we got to make it nice and strong. And then you can put the tree into a bit of shock because it's lost so many pieces of it. And for a lot of us on the other side of it, without knowing about this pruning as part of a healthy system, we tend to keep all of the trees. And then it just becomes this bedraggled, gnarled mess with all the branches still intact because we feel like we have to pull it all with us and carry it all with us. Where if we can look at this consciously completing piece of it, we can discern which of the branches are ready to be pruned and which of the branches we can let go of so that the whole system can be healthier and let go of in a way that's honoring, right? Consciously completing with each of these pieces. And that discernment is the key. The body is the key. What we've learned and received from our roots and our ancestry is going to be informing us moving forward, as well as the information that we know from what we've lived and experienced in this life after that ancestry. So it's that integrating that needs to happen as well, rather than unconsciously carrying forward everything.
I have two distinct pieces, but they relate to one another. One, you brought forth the pruning that we may do on our own trees. It's hard to prune somebody else's tree without permission. But when we're pruning our own trees, there are some ways in which pruning, depending on the tree, serves it really well. I have one tree that wants all of the little stragglers at the bottom to be nipped off, right? And so that it can continue to flourish upward and outward. And then I have another one that I learned, they're the kind they want to just lop all the top off and let the roots get really connected. So it depends on what is to be released.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have to bring in, because we're moving into new energies, things are happening really quickly. At a moment's notice, something can happen. The lightning bolt that can come down and just lop off or split a tree. How do we take those moments in time that feel like lightning has struck us and severed our lives in unimaginable ways? How do we create a new origin story from that? How does that tree reshape itself, recover from that wound, if you will? It may take a tree and split one branch off, split it down the middle, and still some trees survive and grow back into a new version. I think that's an exquisite part of the metaphor, too. That discernment of how do we move in these years coming to create the new initiated version of us and us collectively.
With that lightning bolt, it always reminds me of the Tower card in tarot that speaks to that immediate change, sudden lightning strike, and the tower falls down to the ground. And everyone sees that as a really disastrous card, which, if you take it at face value, it can be because it's destruction. But if you watched our previous miniseries, the next piece of that card is space and capacity to build something else that's radically different and more aligned with what actually needs to come through. With the tree metaphor, it reminds me of Sequoia National Park. They have these huge, hundreds and hundreds of feet tall sequoia trees. And when Westerners first discovered it, they said, oh, we have to protect this park. We have to protect all the trees in here. So let's do fire mitigation. We don't have any fires in this park. So for 100 years, there were no fires in the park. But what we didn't realize was that those trees need fire in order to have saplings grow, in order to bring the next generation through, because the pine cones will not grow without fire. It's that lightning strike that we actually need for the next generation of whatever it is to come forth. And it's part of that life cycle. And just like you said, there are so many trees in that park that, yes, some of them have burnt down completely, and others have experienced these beautiful burns, and they've built and rebuilt themselves stronger around the burns. And there are some where the core of their trunks is totally burnt out, but they still have the outer parts that are growing and alive. And it's just beautiful melange of different types of trees and different creations that have been formed because of that fire, because of the thing that we see as being really bad and destructive. But it's necessary.
I think about how we're shifting from the rooted into this swift moving winds of change. And the wind is part of fueling the fire for those trees, whether it's natural winds or it's created on behalf of a fire burn, purposeful one. So the winds of change are all about the communication and the movement of energy so quickly that you do need that rootedness of those huge trees to allow the morphing of something new that continues to maintain the protective, resourced ancestral energies as it creates a whole new way of being. And I think about that in terms of Mother's Day and what my heart would want to take forward. My own mom, who is 89, and how I can connect to that foundation when I was a toddler, and how she rooted certain values in me that I see I carry forward. I can discern all these years later as we look at her next transition, whenever that's going to be. I can see what she lets go of and what I let go of in relationship with her communications with me and my communications with her, and how at this point in time, she has instilled another value of compassionate forgiveness and appreciation for a long life and a lot of experience. Some of it was deep trunk roots, some of it was branches that were severed. It might have felt like a lightning bolt at one moment. All of it shapes us into who we are as women and what is our message, our voice, not only within ourselves and each other, but with other women and in relationship with other men. How we voice from that deep rooted, compassionate, and powerful forced energy. It's important to honor that we as women are moving into that. And how do we consciously complete stories, also consciously moving into the new origin story of who we are, whatever timeline we are in our lives.
I love the phrasing of our new origin story because it's at the same time new and ancient because we're bringing forth what we know now, informed by the ancient roots that we have had before, informed by our ancestors and our lineage, and choosing that new origin story. It's a new branch, really, that we are walking out into and bringing forth. And maybe it's a branch that we don't know what the fruit is going to be or if it's even going to bear fruit. And I think that deep-rooted connection that we have with each other and that knowing that this is the next step for us, regardless of what it brings through, is what's the most important for us to bring through. That knowing that gestation.
Yeah. And that gestation does bear some fruit. Do we know the fruit that has been born from that gestation? Can we see it now? Because now is when it's going to show up. What is the fruit that you want to have show up? Is there a fruit that you can recognize in yourself that has been born from your origin story and your adult new origins?
That's a big question. Is there a fruit that feels woven together from my ancestral origin story and current origin story? I get images, like the image of exploration and adventure and risk taking coming from both sides of my family having immigrants. And yeah, ooh, it's hard to put a word for it. I think it's pretty nonverbal, but it's a feeling. Yeah. What about for you?
One of the bearing of fruits is us being in conversation as women and wanting our voices. I've talked in a previous episode of claiming my voice. I'm bearing fruit now
Mm.
in a new story. I'm feeding the potential of that. I'm still in the earth of it and tending the soil so that I continue to see the fruits of the labor, so to speak. I just discovered in this new shift of energies that I'm connecting to potential roots in my family lineage through my grandmother, that not only does that bear fruit of knowing I have roots, but knowing where those roots are and sending me on a new origin story of, okay, what did those immigrants bring from their rootedness of Ireland? So I'm on the quest of, will that bear fruit? I'm digging in a little deeper in order to bring the message forward. And that feels like a perfect Mother's Day, Grandmother's Day timeline of talking about how we're moving into this communication, voice, discerning. What will I learn and what will I bring forward? And what will I let be?
And perhaps also, what will I recover? I know for my immigrant grandparents, their first desire was assimilation. So it was a lot of pruning when they first came over, a lot of pruning of what they knew in their lives and really starting fresh in America. So my mom didn't learn a lot of Chinese traditions. My dad didn't learn German traditions because we were American and that's what you were supposed to do. And so there has been an aspect with my siblings and I of recovering and reclaiming those pieces of ourselves that got pruned. You could say too soon, but maybe they got pruned so that we could recover them and reclaim them rather than having it be something that we inherit by default.
There is what you're initiated into and what have you carry forward.
Mhm.
And where did that sequoia tree of the lineage get pruned, or something significant happened that shifted into another spiraling of the origin story? There's a lot to be said for the immigrant story to create this country that further beckons us into the greater collective of this new story. This origin story of the US was created. There's not just one true north node of it, the United States of America. There's a moment of birth And then a whole lot of stories have been told. So, how do we, as a collective, create the new origin story that is rising? We can see it from the Collapse into Wholeness series that we talked before. How's it spiraling into its new? And how do we want to consciously complete the old as we are brought into the new?
I love that. Beautiful place to end to lead to our next conversation. Thank you all for being with us, spending your precious life force energy in conversation with us and in divine connection with us as we move through these conversations. If you heard something that resonated with you or you thought of somebody as you were listening, share this with them, like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what things do you feel like you are consciously pruning and what would you like to carry forward? And we'll see you in our next conversation.
Thank you for diving deep with us into generative listening. If this episode stirred something in you, subscribe to keep restoring with us. And if someone came to mind while you were in your own generative listening, share this episode with them. Because when women gather, something ancient and necessary awakens.
We are YSM Conversations, connecting back to the deeper currents on behalf of seeding our next collective wholeness.